But one issue that we do need to work on is trust. And what will I do to try to build trust? If I'm working with a group of children, what will I do to build trust? Well, I'll get them to do particular things, and I want them to see that when they do them, they can actually achieve what I said they would. When I first of all said, if you do these things when you read, it'll make it easier, they trusted me. Then, when they saw that that worked, their trust was supported. It was, it was reasonable to trust me along those lines. I'm making a big deal about trust and respect because often they're lost. And I've worked in quite a few schools over the years where trust hasn't been strong, and therefore people haven't been prepared to actually change their practice because they've been concerned about, the outcomes, or whether, some people have worried about whether or not a particular focus of the school will be sustained. They've said, oh, look, the boss is into this now, but you give them a month's time, there'll be something else on the horizon, and then something else again. And so the question was, what will the boss be doing if, we can trust that that will be a focus? Well, we know that there are so many aspects of trust. We could talk about it, and respect. We could talk about it for a day. But I'm pointing it out here as a key aspect. Now, I'm wanting to really stress from the leading, from your angle as either a literacy leader or a school leader, trust needs to be done. Trust is we need to do trusting. And so whatever whatever actions are done need to be done in a particular context that are relevant at that time. Other aspects to do with a professional learning community really relates to ideas being valued on the basis of their worth. We can't avoid some schools having particular political orientations, political in the sense of having a particular focus on literacy or a particular focus on teaching or whatever. That's how organisations work. I think it's important, though, that ideas that people have really are valued, and that some of the ideas that are really way out, that seem really way out, once they've been unpacked, may in fact have relevance. And I guess, like the rest of you, I've sat in situations where someone has thought of a response to an issue that everyone said it wouldn't work, that's crazy, oh, what an idiot, and has moved on very quickly. And then 10 or 15 minutes later, someone else has a wonderful idea, and the group is almost drooling, saying, let's start now. And that idea is really the idea that was mentioned earlier. It's just been gift wrapped a bit. And it's just that the person who raised it the second time wouldn't have had that idea in a fit, but they knew how to read people. And they were able to see where the rest of the group was, and they could bridge the gap between where the group was and how to move along that pathway. And they were a good communicator. They're actually able to bring the group along with them. So we do need to make sure that the community does tolerate and respect ideas. We can all, in any professional learning community, we can have a box where we put ideas that we're not ready to use yet. I mean, we won't know the value of the ideas until we get to a context where it's appropriate. So I'm wanting to really raise the idea with you in your professional learning community that really anything about literacy might be relevant. It may not be relevant at this point. And you see, people will come in with really wacky ideas about literacy. I mean, I've heard some wacky ones. You probably have too. I mean, there are lots of wacky ones. But I'm always reminded that the human being is really complex. And those wacky ideas may well, on some occasion, work for someone. I remember on one occasion getting involved with a guy who was into massaging, your forehead, because he used to maintain that the hardware, the cerebral hardware, needed to be massaged, and if that were not in place, you wouldn't be able to learn. And he did all these crazy things. And, at the time I was totally sceptical. I thought, what a rat bag, And, but then when you think about it, it makes sense that if the apparatus, the hardware isn't going, it's much harder to learn with a headache, guys, than without. I remember I was doing a presentation on one occasion, and a primary teacher said to me, "Oh look, I can see you really agree with me. It's really important that children have oxygen. So I make sure my students drink a glass of water." This was years ago. A glass of water every hour. And it reminded me of that Peter Cook and Dudley Moore trying to teach starlings to fly underwater. And they'd all drowned. They can't fly underwater. And the only result that I could see of having the kids drink more is they'd be wanting to go to the toilet more often. But he believed that by keeping the kids oxygenated, they'd learn better. And there was the other teacher who believed the kids should stand up and do the cross-lateral patterning every 10 minutes. Put on some martial music, and the kids all do that to stimulate their brain. Well, who knows? There'll be all sorts of wacky ideas to do with literacy. I guess I've been around long enough to know that the wacky ideas may make sense for some kids in some situations. And I wouldn't want to throw out any idea if I thought it could have relevance somewhere. We need to take on board that our colleagues are going to learn in a range of different ways, and we certainly shouldn't expect them all to learn in the ways that we do. We know that in any class, we talk about a range of learning styles, and the whole approach to teaching, to pedagogy that we're pushing, is based on that. And we need to really bear that in mind with our work with staff. I think it's really important that the learning community, that the group in which you work, in the learning community that you set up, really decides for itself particular outcomes. And as you know, I'm really focused on the outcomes at the end of each term, or outcomes at the end of each month and so on. And that you have indicators that the group has learned. So you're working with 2 or 3 colleagues. You're going to focus on particular aspects of literacy. It's important to be clear on what you expect to achieve, like each term or each month. And it's also important that you decide what are indicators of whether or not you have achieved those outcomes. So it's really applying to professional learning the same indicators that we would use when we're working with students. Now, it may be that we don't achieve those goals. It may be that all sorts of other issues arise, barriers, obstacles occur. But if we've got a plan, we can always change it. We can always modify it. Without a plan, it's much harder to change. So if you've got a focus, if you can see where you want to go, if you visualise where you want to be with your professional learning,